You're listening to Jerry Agar on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
So you think you got a home and you go on vacation and maybe you're happy to come home. But certainly when you come home, you want to lug the suitcases through the front door and be where you're comfortable and overall hopefully happy to be. And then you show up and there's some people living in your house. What are you doing here? Well, this is our house. What are you doing here? How organized crime has mortgaged or sold at least 30 GTA homes without the owner's knowledge. That's a headline on a CBC article. Future of title insurance could be at risk if this real estate fraud trend continues. Yesterday, I was having a morning Zoom coffee meeting with a group of people, as I do on Sundays, and one of those people is Frank Leo. I do his ads here on the network, and and he was talking to us about how this can be mitigated against. And I thought, I'm not sure I understand it completely enough to do this by myself. So from Frank Leo and Associates, Remax West Realty Incorporated Brokerage, Frank Leo, good morning.
Good morning, Jerry.
Well, this they've said at least 30 here. Is this of big conversation in the real estate world these days?
Well, even one is too much. I mean, this is our, biggest investment, and we want to definitely, protect it.
Yeah, one of the greatest books I ever read, Frank, is a book called The Mystery of Capital, Why Capitalism Triumphs in the West and Fails Everywhere Else. It's by an economist named Hernando de Soto. It's a fabulous economics book, but basically I mention it because one of the things he talks about is the safety net that we have in Western capitalism is that we have titles of ownership. It's not only that I own my home if I do, but that the state knows that I own my home, that it's legally protected. And this kind of thing, with people coming in and taking over other people's homes, happens in more third world countries and places like that. It's not supposed to happen here.
Well, I mean, criminals are very, ingenious, and they find ways to use the system to their advantage. But once it comes out in the open like it has, then the authorities and everyone is looking out for this not to happen going forward. And so a lot of things have already been implemented, but nevertheless, it should be, very much top of mind so that you protect yourself, because there are a few things you can do.
Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, how are they doing this? My understanding is, and this would be a smaller number of homes, but first of all, the home is paid off. Is that right?
Well, it makes it easier when the home is paid off. So it's less of a burden, because when you have a mortgage on a property or an encumbrance, that has to be removed. So it's an extra step, and an extra step where something could fall through the cracks and get you caught.
Yeah, what they say in the CBC is an organized crime group starts by looking through publicly available property records for a home without a mortgage. From there, the groups who ultimately receive the fraudulent funds use stolen IDs and hire stand-ins to pose as tenants to gain access to the home, and other stand-ins impersonate the homeowners to mortgage or sell it. And they pay these people $5,000 to $10,000 to pretend to be the homeowners. So you've got a home that's paid off, and you got people that are on vacation or whatever, and everybody's pretending to be somebody else, and somehow they're able to get the bank or whoever needs to be involved and real estate people to believe that this is a legitimate sale. Is this something that a real estate agent ought to know, or would they not be able to tell?
Well, Jerry, that's not necessary for refinancing or putting a mortgage on a property. So you don't even have to sell a property. They can just show up and say, I want a mortgage on a home. And that's easier to do, because if a home is paid off and it's worth, $1 million plus, if you're borrowing $250,000 or $500,000 on it, there's really no concern, right? There's enough equity in the home, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So one of the ways to protect yourself is to have a mortgage on the home. Now, if you don't have a mortgage, it's a good thing, and so you don't want to borrow money on the home. But what you can do is register a line of credit on your home. Make it as big as you can. If you don't use it, there is no worries, right? But when someone looks it up, they're going to see there's a mortgage registered on the property, and they're going to probably move on to the next one that doesn't have a mortgage. Okay,
so that's a protection for you with the criminals who might just say, no, let's not do this one, because why? There would be extra attention paid by a mortgage lender or somebody if there's already a mortgage on it.
Well, Well, they would have to put a second on there, no longer a first. So it
I
becomes
see.
a little bit riskier. They want to do an appraisal. They want to look into it a little bit more. They want to, so once there's a mortgage on a property, it makes it a little bit more complicated.
All right. So I want to make sure I clearly understand this. I go to my bank. I own my home. I want a line of credit. I might use it. I might not use it. But let's do it as potentially as a lien against my home. And it's that simple as some paperwork, and I don't even need to borrow the money.
That's right. Well, and then you have access to it if you need it. But, yeah, you don't have to borrow it, and it costs you nothing if you don't borrow it. But it's registered on your property, and so now anybody wanting to put a mortgage on will have to be a second mortgage. It can't be a first one anymore. So, therefore, now they're going to look into what's the home worth, how much money do you make, et cetera. And so now that brings an extra level of attention to your mortgage or refinancing that's going to be happening. And so the criminals don't want that. They're going to walk away from you.
I'm talking to Realtor Frank Leo about this CBC report, how organized crime has mortgaged or sold at least 30 GTA homes without the owner's knowledge. Why doesn't title insurance protect this?
Title insurance can protect it and it will protect it. The problem is that homes that are purchased over 15 years ago where title insurance is not there, they're not covered. They don't have title insurance. And so you can actually go and apply for title insurance, but it is quite costly. I mean, the thousands of dollars to put it on there, and that's why a line of credit was suggested.
All right. Now, if this had happened to me, if I owned my home outright and I was on vacation and I come back and somebody else is living there and they think they bought the home, because of what I was talking about earlier with our laws and our registration of sales and all of that kind of stuff, ultimately I'm getting my home back.
If you have title insurance, et cetera, yes, you should get your home back. I mean, it depends what exactly transpired. Obviously, it was your home, but, the buyers probably don't have any, ill intentions, so they also have a home that they purchased and they're moved into. So, I mean, there's going to be some issues there. Better to avoid it. Better to know your neighbors. One of the things that you should do is if you're renting out your property, that's when you're more at risk about selling. Now that the market has shifted a little bit, it's not as crazy as it once was at the beginning of last year where homes were selling, overnight in a day or two. It'll take a little bit longer. So your neighbors keeping an eye on your property for you, seeing people coming in and out would be a telltale sign to protect you and give you a call. Hey, what's going on there?
All right. This won't affect a tremendous number of people. Let's come back to sort of the market overall. I was reading the other day, Frank Leo, that actually the price of homes is marginally coming down. True?
It is true.
How much?
Well, it's depending on where you are. It's different amounts. But what has happened here is that the cost of borrowing has gone up, and that's affected people who are buying homes for the first time. Also, people who are refinancing, and a lot of people whose mortgages are coming up for renewal, unfortunately, will have to pay more per month than they currently are or were. And so that's causing some grief because our pays have gone up, but maybe not as much as we need them to cover the extra mortgage amounts. And so that's going to force people to have to make some serious decisions in terms of if they're buying their first property, what property can they afford? Even though the prices are lower, the mortgages are higher, and that's going to cause them some, to reevaluate the size of home, location of the property. And people who are refinancing might have to, do something to help them with the extra payments or maybe downsize or change locations.
But not a situation where some young couple just starting out should think that all of a sudden houses have become super affordable in Toronto.
Well, the houses, even if the price changed, the cost of borrowing has gone up tremendously. And so, when you're buying your first property, you're buying the home, but you're also buying the mortgage. You have to purchase that mortgage at the current rates, and they've gone up substantially from the rates that were last year. They went up 7 times, right?
Yeah. But some people say, well, we have to do that because that's the only way we're going to ultimately tame inflation.
Yes, and inflation is definitely a problem. It's costing us in everything that we do. I mean, the consumer is being hit very hard, and so a lot of families are feeling it. We're getting those calls. People are concerned, and, we feel for them. And so we have to find ways to, overcome it. And sometimes people can just, rent out the basement or, find other solutions that are not having to sell the property, but they're doing what they have to make sure that, they can continue on with these new payments.
Can I live at your place?
Absolutely, Jerry.
You said that without checking with your wife. Frank Leo and Associates. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jerry.
This is the iHeartRadio Talk Network.